What's going on, everybody? It's October. It hasn't cooled off. It's going to be 100 degrees this week in Sacramento, but it's October. It's football season. It's playoff baseball season. I've got a couple of things from the month of October that I'm really, really excited for. I'm not going to give anything away yet, but an announcement, an interview or two that I have tentatively coming that I'm really excited for. So, needless to say, a lot going on. Busy time of the school year. Soccer season for Lucy's going on. They had a good tournament this weekend. She had 2 goals and an assist. Anyway, lots going on. And also what's going on are questions from all of you to hear my thoughts on, which again is always an honor for you to have any interest in hearing my thoughts on one of these topics. So this week, as always, 5 really, really good questions, which I'm excited to share my thoughts on. If you have a question that you'd like to hear me talk about in an upcoming episode, please don't hesitate to leave it in the comments below. If you asked a question and I haven't answered it yet, unless I missed it, it's on my list of coming soon. So don't hesitate, as always, to leave your questions down below in the comments. Let's go ahead and take a look at that first one right here. Q&A question. Right now, I'm in between cards. I have gotten a lot of enjoyment in saving up for bigger cards this year. Right now, I have some money to spend, but don't have a card I'm very excited about. There are a bunch of mid-level type cards that I'd like, but that I don't feel passionate about. Would you continue to save your card budget even though you don't know what it's for? Or would you spend some $30 to $50 cards to fill in some spots in your collection, but won't have the impact that a larger card would have? Oh, this is a great question. I literally this last weekend was talking to a friend on the phone about exactly this topic. I said, man, I've got some money that I've started to build up into my card account. I've sold a few things off, and here I am with nothing that I'm imminent to buy. Now, I did buy a couple of pretty cool cards this past month, which will be on an upcoming episode where I show my pickups from the month of September. But there's not like a card that I'm just absolutely jonesing to buy. But there are a lot of cards on my list. So I definitely feel like I can relate to this. Now, the main cards that I am really excited for are fairly big cards. And I booked my room for Strongsville, so I'll be at Strongsville. I booked my room for the National. Yes, I've actually already booked my room for Strongsville and for the National. And so I'm starting to take some of my card money and set it aside for those 2 big shows. So what's the answer to the question? I don't think that there's an answer to the question that's right and a different answer that's wrong. I guess I would say it's kind of like, if you hadn't been out on a date for a while, you're a single guy, hadn't been out on a date for a while, and there's a gal that you're not really that interested in, but she'd go out with you. Should you go out with her just because you haven't been on a date for a while? Or should you wait until you find a gal that you're really interested in going out with? I think that it's probably best to wait for the right one instead of just going out to be going out. That's just my take. So I think that the move is to hold off. I think you let that card account build up a little bit. And then that card that maybe seemed a little bit unattainable suddenly becomes more realistic because you've built up your card account. A lot of the times when I've bought cards that I wasn't just really, really excited about, I end up finding myself going, why did I buy this? This doesn't really fit in my collection. rarely have I bought a big card, and said, why did I buy this? Like, that's not usually what happens. You have to be in love with the card to spend a lot of money on it. You don't have to be in love with a card to spend a little bit of money on it. So I would say wait and buy the card that you're absolutely pumped to be buying. You know, it was the movie, do you remember the movie The Blind Side, right? Had Sandra Bullock in it. You know, it's a good movie, right? Michael Orr's the player. There's been drama recently about that, but there's a scene from that movie that hit home for me, and it's not a scene that you probably think is a scene that would be memorable, but for me it was. And once they took him in, she took him shopping, and they went to this store, and they were looking through different racks of clothing. And he's like, yeah, you know, I think maybe this shirt might be good. And she turns to him, and Sandra Bullock turns to the Michael Orr character and says, do you love it? And he was like, eh. And she goes, because if you don't love it in the store, you're not even going to like it when you get it home. And for whatever reason, whenever I hate going clothes shopping. But whenever I go clothes shopping, I think about that. If I don't love it, then I shouldn't buy it because I'm never going to wear it. I think it's the same thing with cards. Even if it's a small card and you love it, buy it. If it's a big card and you love it and can afford it, buy it. But if it's a card that you're like, nah, I haven't bought anything for a while, I should buy something. I mean, that card's kind of cool. I don't think that that's the card to buy. Make sure you love it before you buy it. Don't just buy it because you're bored. You know, it's like one thing I do a lot is I'll go into the pantry or the refrigerator because I'm bored, not because I'm hungry. And when I end up doing that, the food probably tastes okay. But if I eat when I'm hungry, it tastes way better. So I know that I've used a couple of analogies that are probably not ones you expected me to use, but I really do believe that you shouldn't buy a card unless you really, really love the card. And not just the card, but that exact copy of the card. Don't say, I've been looking for this card for a while, and this one's okay. I guess I should do it. Be patient. The right one will come along. And when it does, you'll be so glad that you waited. You know, my 49 Leaf Warren Spawn, I looked for that card for 2 years. Heck, my Ernie Banks rookie card, I looked for that card for 30 years before I actually bought one. And the one that I bought for each of those, I love and was worth the wait. So that would be my advice. Greg, great video as always. A couple of questions for you. Not sure if you can answer the question in your videos or not. My question and comment, what do you think of Whatnot? I have had some bad experiences and don't use them at all. I took the app off my phone. Here's my issue. Many of the sellers on Whatnot do not describe the problems with the cards fully. Many sellers don't share creases in the cards or other problems that you get stuck with in cards that are overpriced from bidding and not in the condition you thought they were in. I have been burned several times by sellers stating that the card is in great shape when they're not. It's very hard to judge a card from a video when you see it for a short time, and sometimes the lighting isn't the best. Pictures are better. What's your experience with them? Also, do you think there is a way to make it more level playing field for the buyers when they go to a show and have to wait till they open the doors, while the sellers are buying the good deals from the other sellers before everyone enters the show? A lot of good deals are gone since the sellers are buying the cards early. There are several videos out there showing at the recent National Card Show, big sellers like Ryan Card Collector 2, going around and purchasing cards before the show opens and turning around and selling the same cards for a big markup. One such card was a really nice Manny Machado relic patch jumbo card with a great image of the Padres logo patch from the sleeve on the card. Super cool. I then decided to read the comments of the people that watched this video and saw one comment from a fellow buyer really get angry, stating that this practice is so unfair and felt the same way I do, along with other people of how the way that this is done is unfair to buyers at the show. What do you feel on this subject?
All right, so I have a couple of thoughts on this. There's really two parts to the question. One of them, I think, is a very difficult question, but I certainly have some opinions on it. It's something I've thought a lot about. But let's start with the whatnot question. No matter where you go, no matter when you buy something, whether it be at a garage sale or a supermarket or a department store, there are going to be times that there are some less than genuine people selling. You know, if I went to a flea market, I wouldn't necessarily take every word coming from the person at the booth to be the letter of the law. There's a certain amount of risk involved. And the thing about whatnot, in my opinion, is it is so in a way, it's sort of like an open garage sale. And there are a lot of really good deals. And one of the reasons that there are really good deals is because there's risk. If there was no risk, there wouldn't be very many good deals. It kind of comes with the territory. You know, that is something that I think needs to be built into the equation. Now, are there times you're going to absolutely hit a home run on whatnot? Yeah, for sure, because things will sell cheap. And things will sell because there might only be 15 people in the room. And a card might sell for less than it normally would. Or generally speaking, to be honest with you, it's lots of cards, like a lot of 50 cards. That's where some really good deals take place. Is there a possibility that those cards are trimmed? Sure. That those cards aren't in the condition that they say that they are? Sure. Keep a couple of things in mind. Number one, sellers have ratings, and the ratings are from past buyers. And so that could help tell a story if there's a trend of something that a seller is doing. But also keep in mind that there's a lot of risk, and that's why there are good deals. Does that mean it's a safe place to buy? I don't think it's like going to the most reputable dealer at the National who's been around forever. Of course, that isn't that risky because that guy has a reputation. He's a known commodity. But the person on whatnot who pops up, there is more risk. So I guess if you're a risk adverse person, if you're not really feeling risk, then whatnot's probably not for you. But if you're willing to throw a few darts, if you're willing to take some chances and know you're going to hit some home runs and there are some times it's not going to work out for you, I think that whatnot has some opportunity there for sure. But it's different than other marketplaces, no doubt about it. I have sold on whatnot a couple of times. I have bought on whatnot several times. I personally have had good experiences, but I have heard that there are bad ones. So that's kind of my take on whatnot. Regarding the other part of your question and dealers getting in early to shows and dealers making deals before shows start. A lot of people say it's not a tough question. That's an easy question. That shouldn't be happening. I do understand that. I do understand that point of view. Let me play devil's advocate for a second, though. The dealer is paying a large fee to be able to be a dealer. And to me, when that dealer is paying the large fee to become a dealer, they have a few things that they get as a result. Number one, they have a booth where they can sell things, right? That's one thing you get from being a dealer. Another thing you get from being a dealer is you're on the other side of the table. So when you sell to them, you're not going to be selling at retail. You're going to be selling at a cut off of retail. Maybe 80%, 70%, 75, 85%. Somewhere in there, you're buying it wholesale. Just like when I trade a car in, if I just chose to trade in my car, I'm not going to be selling it at retail. But if I park it on the corner and I put a for sale sign on it, I'm going to get more money for it because I'm selling it more to retail price than a wholesale price. But when you trade it in, there's a discount. So I think that's one of the things that a dealer gets. So they get to set up a booth. They also get to buy at a discounted rate. It's part of the deal. And they also get in before the show opens. Now, I could see why people would say, I don't think that dealers should be buying from other dealers until the show opens. I could see that. And I don't really totally disagree, but for as long as I've been in cards, it's sort of been a thing that you get by setting up. So if that was a big deal, right, at the local card show, being able to, if it was worth hundreds of dollars, well, I'd say, well, set up a booth and then you can get in early too. It's part of what they're paying for. Now, it is frustrating and it can be demoralizing. And I just watched a video a few days ago of Jeff Wilson, and he was in before a show opened, and he was talking about, the show's about to open. I want to make this deal before the show opens because then I'll have more competition for this big purchase. And he bought like $20,000 worth of stuff before the show even opened. And he knew, he was saying, I want to do this before it opens because I don't want other people to buy this stuff. And part of me was like, that's kind of lame because these other people are paying to get in and these other people are waiting outside and it's being purchased. So I do see I think there are two sides of it. But it doesn't mean that it's okay or right. I've set up as a dealer a few times. I've never actually bought anything early, but I've walked around and looked at a few tables a few times before shows opened. At Strongsville show last year, my buddy Ash got me a dealer pass. So I actually got into the show a couple of hours before the show opened. And I kind of felt like I was in a little bit of a dilemma. I had a bunch of friends in town, a bunch of friends at the show, and they couldn't get in yet because I had a dealer pass. They didn't have a dealer pass, and they weren't letting anybody in early. And so I kind of was like, well, I could go in and have first pick of things, but that to me didn't feel right because not only was I just on someone else's dealer pass, but I didn't even pay. If I was a dealer who paid for a booth and then was going to go around and buy, then maybe. Then that is to me a gray area. But when a dealer got me a dealer pass and then I got in early. So what I did at the Strongsville show is I didn't buy anything early. What I did is I walked around. I talked to a couple of dealers. I met a few dealers that I didn't know, and I did some videoing for my video. So if you notice it on my Strongsville day one video, I had a bunch of video of several cases. And one of the reasons I was able to take quality video is because I got in early. But I didn't buy anything until the show actually opened. In fact, at the Strongsville show, I don't think I even bought anything until the second day. I don't think I bought anything until the second day. So it is sort of a thing that's a difficult one to say what's right and what's wrong. Is it wrong if I had bought something early? I don't think it's wrong. I don't think. I'd be interested in everybody. This is a question that I would be really interested to hear what you all think about. If I got in early to a show, would it be bad to buy something? Again, I've never done that, but I've always felt like that's part of what a dealer gets when a dealer is buying a booth, is they get first crack at seeing the show. But I also was frustrated when I saw this video of Jeff Wilson in the show saying, I got to make this deal done before everybody opens up. I got to do this before other people start buying these cards. I was kind of like, well, that stinks. Let me know what you guys think about it. I'm kind of on the fence with it. Again, as a dealer paying to get in, it seems like that's always been one of the benefits. Should it be one of the benefits? I don't really know, but it does feel like I mean, yeah, when I go and buy a new car, I don't get to pay invoice price. I don't get to pay wholesale price like the dealership did. Is that unfair that the dealer gets to buy the car at wholesale and I have to pay retail? I don't know. I know that's not the same thing, and there are people going, that's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be really interested to see what you all think about this one, because I think it's a tough question.
Here's a question. Would you be happy if all cards went to 25% of today's value with no idea for future prices? I would be thrilled, as I cannot ever imagine my want list not being bigger than my have list. Going to the National and being able to afford more cards would be so much fun. When I say this to people, they look at me like I have 3 heads.
I've heard so many people bring up this topic. You know, I wish all cards went down 80%, because if they went down 80%, I'd be able to buy more cards. And I've heard other people say, no, you're crazy if you think that. What's the answer? I think we all joke to a certain extent. I wish prices went down because then I could buy more. But then at the same time, people don't really want to buy something and then see prices plummet. You know, when people buy a house, don't you want house prices to then go up? You don't want to buy a house and then see prices plummet, and then you go, oh, well, I guess I'll go buy a bunch of rentals. You kind of want the prices to go up. You don't want to buy a car and then a week later see cars go on sale. And you go, well, my wife needs a car, and now that one's on sale, I'll get one cheaper. You're kind of bummed out, I think, if the prices go down after you just bought, right? I think to a certain extent, we all love cards and we like having lots of cards. But I think that most of us also want to see the value of the stuff that we buy go up and appreciate in value. You want to, because again, a lot of people, one of the questions that I've had for a long, long time that I ask other people is, why did you decide to buy this card now instead of that card now? We all have lists. There's nobody who collects cards who doesn't want any cards. Everybody's got at least 2 cards on their want list. So if you've got 2 cards on your want list, how did you pick this one to buy now instead of this one? Well, it's generally one of 2 things. Either this one became available and this one isn't available, so you bought the one that became available. Or number 2, you thought one of them was going to go up in price sooner and more than the other, so you want to buy that card before it goes up in price. Right? Isn't that kind of, if you are thinking about, I want to buy a Hank Aaron rookie card, an Ernie Banks rookie card, and an Al Kaline rookie card, which one do you buy first? It's either the first one that had the eye appeal and the price that you liked, or if they're all available, then you buy the one I think is going to jump in price the most is going to be this one, so I better buy it before I can't afford it and it goes way up. Isn't that kind of at least participate in the decision of what card we're going to buy next? So I don't think that we want to see our cards go down in value. And I know so many people say, I don't care about values. I don't think there are that many people who genuinely don't care at all about the values. We buy cards because we like them. But part of the game, at least a little portion of the game for a lot of us, is not just buying stuff that we like and hunting for something that we want. But it's also kind of saying, I'm going to buy this because I think this is going to go up soon. And then you buy it and then you hope that it goes up once you have it, because then you're kind of right. You're like, yeah, I did buy it at the right time. Like, that's part of the fun. Because a lot of us guys, let's face it, we have certain wiring about us. And one of the things, most of us are wired to compete. We're wired to be successful. Another thing we're wired for is we're wired to have this desire to have financial success. And I think that we want to be correct in our prediction of a certain card doing a certain thing price-wise. So that's just my guess. That's my take. So I don't think I want my cards to go down to 25% of the current value. Even though I might joke that they do, it doesn't mean I want them to triple. And there are a lot of cards that I want. But the thing I got to remember is this hobby, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And along the way, there are going to be little pickups over a long period of time. I'm not going to buy everything I want in the next 6 months. I'm hoping to buy everything that I want, or a lot of what I want, in the next 50 years. And I don't think that we want our cards to plummet just so we could buy them sooner. I think we'd rather see the slow increase over time to our assets and picking up the ones that are most important to us along the way.
Now, I have a question for you. I collect now mostly 1970s and early 80s Rookie Hall of Fame players for my great-grandson to have when he gets to his 20s. Do you believe that a lot of those cards are undervalued right now and are a good hold for someone down the road 20 years from now?
This is a question that I think a lot of us wonder about. 70s and 80s cards. Those rookie cards of, early 80s guys like Cal Ripken. Football, you're talking like Elway and Marino and Montana. And, some of the guys from the 70s like Eddie Murray or, Walter Payton. And what happens is we go, will those cards really go up in value a lot? And obviously none of us know. If we knew, it would make our decisions much easier. So I think there are two competing factors here, obviously. Supply and demand. First, the supply of those cards is much, much, much higher than cards from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. We know that. The other thing about cards from the 70s and the 80s is that's in an era where there was card protection. And people said, I think this will be valuable, so I need to take care of it. Low grade 1950 cards isn't super rare. High grade 1950 cards is very rare because most people played with their cards and most people, looked at them all the time and pinned them up on the wall and stuff. And so the thing that is really expensive from the 50s are the popular players in really good condition. Well, in the 70s and the 80s, this is an era where there were cases, there were, sleeves, there were top loaders, those things were happening in the 70s and the 80s. So it's much easier, not just to find the card because the print runs were bigger, but it's also an era where there are more cards in good condition because people thought, I need to keep them in good condition, and because there was the ability, there were protection to keep them in good condition. So the supply is higher and the supply of nicer ones is higher. But then the opposite piece of it, the counter to it, is the nostalgia and the demand. You know, when I was growing up, I wanted a Rickey Henderson rookie card, but I couldn't buy one. They were expensive. Well, now I can afford one. I ran into a friend. So when I was growing up, kid, two doors down, he was like the guy that we did a lot of baseball card stuff with. Traded a lot, looked at cards a lot, opened packs with a lot. And I ran into him at a card show about 6 months ago. And I mentioned this briefly, that we ran into the guy. And I started talking to him. I hadn't seen him in 25 years. And it was so funny that we ran into him at a card show because, and I was there with my dad and he was there with his dad. And we started talking. And I said, "Hey, you buying anything?" He goes, Yeah. I recently bought an 84 Topps Dan Marino rookie card. I bought an 84 Topps John Elway rookie card. He goes, "I really want to pick up the Topps traded Cal Ripken." He goes, "That's what I'm looking for today." And he actually ended up buying one at the show that day. And is obvious the reason he wanted those cards is those were the nostalgia cards. Those were the big cards when we were kids. And a lot of those of us that collected during that junk wax period, those were cards that we couldn't have then because they were expensive, but we wanted. Not only were they expensive, but there wasn't eBay where you could just find 100 of them for sale at any moment. That wasn't the thing. You'd have to go to a shop or a show and hope they had one. Then was the condition any good? And then was the price good? So there is a lot of nostalgia for people wanting the cards from their childhood. So I definitely think that a lot of those cards from the 70s and the 80s, there is a good amount of demand from even the average collector or entry collector wanting those cards from their childhood. But there's also a higher print run, and there's also the whole, ability to protect the cards and keep them nice. So what's more, the supply of them or the demand of them? Well, time will tell, and we obviously don't know. What do I think? I genuinely, I don't think that it's an easy answer. I do think that there are a lot of them. And I do think that it would require a lot of people to really want them for the prices to shoot up. I don't expect them to shoot up, but I do think that rookie cards of guys like Ozzie Smith, and, Don Mattingly, I think that those cards are going to continue to have some demand. And I think that as some younger MidLife type guys like me are going to continue to want those. I still have several cards from that era that I'd like to add to my collection that I haven't added yet. And the reason I haven't added them yet is because there are enough of them that I know that when I decide to get one, I'll be able to grab one. And it's not a card that, one popped up, I've got to go get it. So, as always, I think collect what you like and collect the things that bring you joy and nostalgia. And by doing that, I don't think you can go wrong.
Another great Q&A day. Thank you for answering the questions. How about this one? It's very difficult to have two hobbies that you equally love and have time and money to satisfy both. For me, my other hobby is fishing. I don't get out as much as I want to these days, but it's still very fun and important to me. Do you have a second hobby that you love almost as much as card collecting? And if you do, what is your strategy for balancing both? Fishing and cards may sound different, but they do clash. Money and time are needed for both.
So I think that there is danger in being all in on one thing. I'm a fan of diversification. I think that if you invest all your money into Apple stock and then something happens, That could be a problem. Ask people who are heavily invested in Enron or Circuit City or Blockbuster Video or Toys R Us. That could be a problem. And I think that it's good to have multiple things that occupy your mind, occupy your time, and your interests. If you're all in on cards and then something happens and you just feel burned, maybe you find out that a card that you bought was trimmed and wasn't, or was a fake and wasn't authentic, and it frustrates you. Maybe you have a storm come through, like we just had the major hurricane, tons of flooding, and there's no doubt that people lost their collection that live in those areas. And some people could just be so frustrated by that they just go, screw it. I don't want to have all of my energy tied up in just one hobby. Now, what is my other hobby? What are my other hobbies? Well, you could say being a sports fan of different teams is a hobby. You could say going and watching my kids do sports as a hobby. But the other main hobby that I participate in is golf. I've been a golfer since I was about 6 or 7. I played competitive golf in junior tournaments, in high school tournaments. And I'm a decent golfer. I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a membership to a country club and can play pretty much whenever I want. And I don't play as much as I should. One of the things that I found is when I was playing a lot, and there was a stretch 2, 3, 4 years ago, I was playing a lot, is that I was getting so caught up in it that if I would have a couple of bad holes, I'd get really upset because I had put so much time and energy into it that I'm like, oh, my round is shot, And in reality, it's supposed to be fun. But when you have other hobbies, you collect cards and you golf and you, I don't know, what do other people do for fun? Go fishing, okay? And you're having an awful day on the golf course. If you're having an awful day on the golf course, which every golfer has, and all you do is golf, that's really discouraging. But if you have an awful day on the golf course, but you can go home and look at some of your cards and head out to the lake and go fishing, then it doesn't matter to you quite as much when you have a really bad day on the golf course. So I think that diversifying your interests is probably healthier. I probably am not golfing enough right now. And I'm probably doing cards a little bit too much right now. 3 years ago, I was golfing too much and I wasn't doing enough of cards. Those things have kind of flip-flopped. But being able to find that balance point, I'm going to go golfing tomorrow with Molly. Molly and I have a little golfing date tomorrow, and I'm excited for it. And it's good for me to not just come home, cards, go to bed, next day, cards. Like, I don't think that that's what's good for us. I think that we need to have multiple interests. So mine is golf. I would encourage people, if all you're doing right now is cards, I would encourage you to find something else that you're also kind of into, because otherwise, hey, what if you're not able to buy any cards for 3 months because some financial thing happens, but your only hobby is collecting cards, and now you can't add any cards to the collection, or you have a financial issue and you have to sell a bunch of your cards because you have to pay certain bills. Well, then you're selling off your only hobby. Like, that's a lot. So I think having multiple hobbies, I don't know, what do other people do? Go to the gym? Anyways, that's my take on it. I think it's a good question. As always, if you guys have a question, don't hesitate to ask it in the comments below. I look forward to hearing what you all are interested in, and I appreciate everybody who took the time to ask a question recently.